Encounter is brought to you by the Broome County Council of Churches, where we connect compassion with needs as we inspire growth with dignity. You'll find us in special places throughout the community. For those who remain hungry, we provide meals. For those who are challenged, we build wheelchair ramps. We comfort those who are ill, minister to those who are confined, and we remain an advocate for change and understanding on behalf of every element of our community. Connect and inspire. Encounter the Broome County Council of Churches.
Good morning, I'm Jeff Kellam. Welcome to this week's edition of Encounter. My guest and I were just talking about how volunteers are part of the machine that gets things done in our community. People who have committed their lives to serve others. When we talk about faith in action, you know, for some folks, putting faith in action is sitting in the pew or standing up to sing a hymn or kneeling in prayer, and those are wonderful things. But putting faith in action also could mean having the courage to protest something or to work in terms of justice and peacemaking in our communities. There's another aspect to faith in action too, and that's volunteerism. People of faith have volunteered in so many areas of our community for so long, and they are honored once a year, at least through the Broome County Council of Churches, at the Lives of Commitment Breakfast, which is held each May at some hotel downtown. Which one was it?
Doubletree.
The Doubletree, yeah. They're not paying for this mention, but there they are. And the Lives of Commitment Breakfast honors 3 different programs or individuals who have made a real difference. And we're going to tell their stories today, including some middle school kids. We're going to start with that one and show these middle school kids at work building a wheelchair ramp. My guest today is very familiar to Encounter folks. She's on almost as often as I am, Sue Spencer, and you are the program director of Faith in Action,
yes.
Which is the volunteer arm of the Broome County Council of Churches.
Yes, thank you.
So the breakfast was held in May at the Doubletree, and it was great to see the room full again after last year when it was just a kind of a skeleton crew because of COVID.
It was virtual last year, so this was really nice to be in a room full of people together doing something or celebrating something really great.
Right,
you know?
Right. And the celebration, who chooses who these 3 honorees are each year? You have a committee?
Well, we have a signature committee for the event, and there are subcommittees. So we have 3 honorees. We have one for Faith in Action, which usually I talk to my boss about, and we go over that. And,
you have a boss?
I have a boss.
Man, who knew?
And then we do have a council honoree, which usually I kind of throw out to other people within the Council of Churches. So that could be anybody from any program. And then our community honoree, we do have a co-committee or a subcommittee that of people from the signature committee that sit down and talk about that.
So you have one representative from the Faith in Action section of the Broome County Council of Churches. Then you've got the broader Council of Churches honoree. And then one from the community who may not have anything to do with the Council of Churches. Right.
But interestingly enough, this year, the council honoree is also a Faith in Action volunteer. And the community honoree actually has been involved with the Council of Churches. It just kind of fell into place that way, you know. I mean, they all have different stories, but it was a great group. And I have to say, every year, you know, we pick these people, we have the event, we get done, I go, oh, that was awesome. How are we ever going to top that again next year? And we all, I'm not saying that we top it, but the next year I think the same thing. So.
and it must be interesting too, you put all of this energy into this breakfast, attended by how many people?
Typically we have about 300.
Yeah.
This year we had some fewer, but we had a nice crowd, for sure.
Yeah. And area organizations will buy a table, you know,
they'll
as a
sponsor.
fundraising thing.
Mm-hmm.
So you have 300 people, and the thing goes well, and then you take a week off, and now you have to start thinking about what are we going to do next year.
Yeah, I know. We just had our debriefing meeting yesterday, already talking about next year.
Yeah.
So.
Well, let's get right into the first story. I want to make sure that we have time for all three of these.
Sure.
Twigs is the name of the group, and I know these are some young people from the Endwell United Methodist Church. And tell me a little bit about why they were chosen.
Well, one of the services, I don't want to say programs, but one of the things that we run in Faith in Action is the Ramp It Up program, which is building ramps, which uses youth teams and adults to build ramps for those who need access to their homes. And the Twigs from Endwell United Methodist Church have been instrumental in building ramps, probably from day one, since this started in, I think, 2009. And their groups come every year, and they build ramps for people. And they also do some fundraising too. So they help financially, and they help with their strength and their brawn. These teeny.
Right.
And so they've really been active in that. So we felt this year it was good to honor them for their work and their commitment to ramp it up.
Great. Well, let's watch the video of these folks as they talk about Twigs and explain what Twigs is all about.
Okay, so Twigs stands for Teens Walking in God's Spirit, and it's based on the scripture verse in Jeremiah, where the trees are rooted by the water and becoming very fruitful. Our mission statement is to inspire teens to love, laugh, and live like Jesus. So everything we do in mission work is emulating off of our mission statement, whether it's mission projects or fun events. We want to be the hands and feet of Jesus. So their ages are 12 through about 14, 15. Dave Alexander connected the youth to the Ramp It Up program prior to Mark and I, my husband is the pastor, getting to Endwell United Methodist Church.
Probably 15 years ago, we were given a thing from the Council of Churches about, would we participate in Ramp It Up? And it's something that, for me, a passion, I was retired, and I thought that would be a great way. And then also being able to involve the youth to get them to learn what it's like to go out and volunteer for someone you don't know and actually build a ramp, which most of these kids had no clue of what to do. And it's just grown from there. The enthusiasm, because when they get the ramp built, they come back and they talk to people, and so the next group of kids next year, they hear about it. Everybody gets excited that, hey, we're going to go get a chance to help somebody. And I think the biggest thing is when you finish the ramp and you actually see that person come down the ramp, that brings you to tears. You're doing all that work. Everybody has fun, they joke around and everything. Bob Bundy is the greatest guy going when it comes between him and Bill. I mean, they work with our kids. I think a lot of it is the fact that they are learning that by doing something very simple, which building a ramp, and most of them are only there for 8 hours one day, and they're seeing the impact of what they do and how they help somebody else. And then working with, I guess, the team. That's a big thing, a lot of volunteering, you're working with a team of people, and this is a good chance to learn how you interact with people. You have to help one another in doing things. You work with people of all ages, because I get a lot of retirees that come and help with the youth. So that's it's just a good learning experience to help them understand this is what life is about. You volunteer to help.
Yeah, so before we start the project, the people who are organizing it kind of get together with the youth and show them how to use the tools. That's one of my passions. In our house, I'm the one who does all the construction and use the power tools, so I love working with tools. And so the youth just love being able to learn how to use just your basic everyday tools like a hammer, a drill, a screwdriver, and they come away with learning so much of that will carry over into their adult life.
Right. Do they associate with the recipients of the ramps?
Usually during the whole construction of the ramp, the recipient of the ramp is usually inside the home. And sometimes they'll come out or just kind of take a peek at what's going on. But it's at the very end of the construction of the ramp that the youth meet the recipient. They come out on the ramp and we take a picture of them, and it's very moving to see that whole reaction of the recipient and the youth intermingle with that. It's very rewarding. So basically, my role here at the church, I'm the director of Children and Youth Ministries, and we partner with our parents to teach our youth being responsible, taking ownership of mission projects so that they could live out their life in a productive, positive way. And so we like to have mission work for our youth so that they learn to take their eyes off themselves. And what they've learned through this whole process is that there are people in this world that have it a lot worse off than they do. And they walk away from doing mission with not taking anything for granted in their own lives. So they were able to put themselves in the shoes of other people and really feel what they feel. And that is what mission work is all about. So, and that's what we try to instill in our youth.
So that is, which honoree is that?
That's the Faith in Action Volunteers.
Faith in Action Volunteers, right.
Honoree, yeah.
And that was Lynn Kimpland, who is the spouse of Mark Kimpland, one of our Encounter hosts,
Yes.
at the Yandwell United Methodist Church. And then you also heard Dave Alexander's voice. Dave used to be a host on this program too.
Sure.
So Dave's voice and it was kind of out of sync, and I tried to fix it the best I could, but
It was wonderful.
he ordinarily speaks in sync.
Yeah. No, it was wonderful, and it was nice to hear, you know, how they work with the kids and
Yeah.
get them involved in things. I think it's very important.
Well, it was fun for me to go, and this was on the north side of Endicott, I think, this particular ramp program that I recorded, and it was fun to watch
Sure.
everybody at work. This is, people working intergenerationally is so special.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. It's a great program.
So the next honoree is,
The Broome County Council of Churches honoree.
and his name?
His name is Gene Bannock. He's been very active with the council for quite a while. He was at one time on the board of directors. He's been very involved with CHOW. And then about 5 or 6 years ago, he started volunteering for Faith in Action too. So he's had his fingers in a lot of things at the council.
Yeah. And as is the case with many of the folks who are honorees for these particular ministries that they're involved in, they also have had wide experience in volunteerism.
Sure.
From their early days as a youth or as a college student. And Gene is one of those folks who's been volunteering his whole life.
Right. He's involved with a lot of other things. He is with the Susquehanna Valley Dollars for Scholars, and I'm trying to think what else, but there's a couple other organizations that he volunteers or helps with.
Yeah.
And he's really a great guy, and he's really passionate about what he does.
Yeah.
So we really appreciate all his work for us.
So let's meet Gene Bannock, who is the
Council.
that is, he works with the Broome County Council of Churches as a volunteer. So we'll meet Gene Bannock now on our Encounter program.
Worked with a woman who was a very spiritual person, gave a lot. And I remember a statement she made one time. She said, "Gene, I believe we're here to give." All right? And it's hard to say. Some people are afraid to get involved, but there are people who are disadvantaged, right? And those of us who are advantaged, perhaps, do we have an obligation to them? Huh? You know, those of us who are able, should we help the disabled, right? You know, and I feel I'm advantaged, and there's a lot of people disadvantaged. You know, reaching out for help.
Yeah.
I don't want to sound like I'm spiritual, or I'm really not. I'm just a guy who lends a hand. here and there. So, but where exactly it started, I can't say. Did I volunteer back in college? I don't know, but it happens soon after anyway. I just started getting involved a little bit in organizations.
So let's jump ahead then to the Council of Churches.
I was asked to serve on the board. Someone gave them my name, perhaps because I had board experience at Lourdes Hospital. I was on the board there. And they asked me, and I agreed, and was there for, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years. And I saw the programs that they had, one of which was Faith in Action. Literally carting people around to medical appointments and so forth. And of course they had the child program as their most prominent program. So I said, when I get off this board, I'm going to do this. It's a roll up your sleeves type thing. No more strategic planning, no more minutes, board meetings. I've been through all that. So I jumped in when I left the board, and that was in 2014. So here I am, probably going on 6 years with the Faith in Action program. And when you include the board, well, I guess I'm going on close to 10 years being affiliated with the Council of Churches. Great organization. I call it a jewel of the Southern Tier. People, are familiar with this because of CHOW, but with Faith in Action, which I'm involved in, they have a jail ministry, they have a hospital ministry, they build ramps. I guess you may be familiar with that. So it's a good experience. And it's one where we know where our money's going. Most of our money's going directly to our programs. And sometimes when we give to various charities, we're not sure. You should go to things like Charity Navigator. They assess and they rate charities. And we're pretty high up there, believe me. I've checked that part. So that's my involvement with the Council of Churches. When you take people off, and I have a few right now that I've taken more than once, several times, you become pretty familiar with them. They become friends. And there's some interesting stories. I know I'm a widower, and one person I think who I had helped maybe to a medical appointment got a hold of me wondering if I cared to meet a lady friend of hers. And so things like that pop up, and it's enjoyable. People often talk about the good feeling that volunteers get. I can tell you, Jeff, that the good feeling is with the people we help. Okay? Many are shut in, and it's nice for them to realize there's an organization like the Broome County Council of Churches that set up this program. Okay? I'm just a bit player. The Council of Churches is the producer. It's like a stage event. They produce this. They direct it. I don't do any of this without them. They should be the honoree. Believe me, the Council of Churches or our particular, program, Faith in Action. I mean that. Okay? So Joe Selepak, Reverend Joe Selepak, does one heck of a job. Great speaker. And matter of fact, when I was approached by Sue Spencer to be the honoree, I initially declined. I said, I don't need this. I feel uncomfortable. And I said, no. Well, a day later, I get a call from Joe Selepak. Gene, you got to do it, blah, blah, blah. It's not so much about you, Gene, okay? It's about what you're doing, in that perhaps others would be encouraged to do it. All right. He's a good salesman, too. So I reluctantly agreed. I guess I'm glad I did, but it is an honor for me. Again, the honor should go to the organization itself. There are so many people who do so much more than me. I take people to a doctor's appointment, maybe pick up groceries, whatever. But there are people who literally work every day, like Meals on Wheels. In that vein, I do encourage people, particularly able-bodied retirees to consider giving a little bit of time. I'm not talking about a daily thing, an hour or two a week maybe. And there are a lot of retirees out there who very well could support some of our organizations. So I appeal to them to give this some consideration.
That was Gene Bannock, another of the honorees at the Lives of Commitment breakfast held by the Broome County Council of Churches. Our guest is Sue Spencer today. Let's move right into our next person.
Okay, our third honoree was our community honoree, which is Jen Small, who has quite a story to tell.
So here is that story from Jennifer Small.
In my volunteer commitment to volunteering goes way back to my family. Growing up, my parents were always involved in the community, everything from the JCs to Rotary to church. So I started young with my dad and my mom. We were very involved in the refugee crisis, the families coming over from Vietnam. Hurricane Agnes I remember well because we spent a lot of time digging people's basements out, and so that goes back to when I was 8 or 10 years old. Church suppers, Shepherd Supper at Central United Methodist, did that. Actually, my daughter helped do that for some years too. And then as I got older, I did my own thing. I got involved in things on my own, started at Crime Victims on the hotline for many years. And then I've served on boards too as part of my job, but then was involved in volunteer activities associated with that. So and the Council of Churches was one of the boards I served on for probably 7 or 8 years. It just makes you feel part of your community. It really does. And I'm a firm believer that if each of us picked one organization whose mission we're passionate about, if just one, I think we'd be a much better place to live. I think so many of us, my husband included, serves on so many committees and volunteer activities, but I don't think one person should be doing 5 or 6. If we spread it out, and we'd be better people too, I think.
Well, describe a little bit this particular recognition.
My family lost my son Max back in 2019 from a drug overdose. He struggled his entire adult life with addiction, and we got to know it too well. In a response to that, we thought, what can we do? How can we, remember him? What can we do for the community that helps people struggling with addiction? So it's actually my husband's idea. Well, we came into possession of a very dilapidated house on Andrews Street on the east side of Binghamton. And he said, why don't we, instead of selling it as is, it would probably go to auction or something. He says, let's remodel it. Let's bring it back to a place to live for, we can donate it to Fairview Recovery Services, which is the primary rehab in Binghamton where they have inpatient services. So that's what we set out to do. We recruited a bunch of friends, volunteers. In particular, Frank Jones, who's a local contractor, helped us get local businesses involved, donating time and materials, and so it turned out to be quite a community event, really. It was a labor of love for me, but for so many it was, just giving back. So it took us about a year. COVID slowed things down a little bit, but back in October of 2020, we handed the house over to Fairview. So now they use it. It's a 4-bedroom house, and so 4 men, that was where the need was greatest, live in that house as a segue, transitioning from inpatient rehab to getting back on their feet. There's such a desperate need for that kind of housing here. My son was in a rehab down in Texas, and the housing was the most important thing. And of course, Texas near Austin is a much bigger population and more readily available housing. But here sometimes people might leave rehab and then they go to the Y. and so they're kind of going back into the same environment that they had been before. So this is a necessity, and I think it's a great asset for Fairview to have this. Well, it's especially nice to be recognized by Penny Stringfield for the work we did at the Maxwell House. By the way, that's what we call the house we donated, the Maxwell House. And I had spent 7 or 8 years on the board there. I was the chair for a couple of years. It was great to work with Joe. And the Council of Churches just does so many things that are so important for the community. I think most people recognize CHOW, but Faith in Action Volunteers is amazing. Jail Ministries is amazing. I mean, it's these things in the community that not everybody thinks about. You know, I have aging parents. My dad actually just passed away a couple of months ago, but the idea of someone, if my mother couldn't drive, you know, being able to help her get to an appointment or get to the grocery store. You know, CHOW's another one. I know people who've had to use the pantry in order to get by. So I think they're kind of a well-known secret. Does that make sense? I mean, so many of us know about it, but there's other people out there who don't. So I'm very grateful for the work that they do. I'm glad Joe's here. He's been quite an asset to the organization over the years. So I have been honored to be a part of it.
Community volunteer Jennifer Small talking about the Maxwell House and a tribute to her son, Max. Our guest is Sue Spencer, and we're at the close of our program just about. You want to make a pitch for volunteerism?
Sure. I think there is a volunteer job for everybody, but if you're really looking to help the seniors in our community, Faith in Action Volunteers is always looking for new volunteers.
Yes.
Yes.
And we're not talking about hours and hours every week. You do find out how much you can carve out of your week to say, I'm going to give of my time, as these folks have.
That's true. I mean, I have volunteers who are very active all week, but then I have some that will do one a week, and I have a couple that will do one a month. And we are very flexible.
How would one get in touch with the Broome County Council of Churches?
Well, they could call me at 724-9130, and my extension is 304. I'd be happy to talk to you.
Or you can go to the Broome County Council of Churches website. If you
Right.
just Google Broome County Council of Churches, you'll find a Faith in Action tab there.
Correct.
And I'm sure that your phone number is going to be there because, as in the media, we always give out these phone numbers like everybody's sitting there with a pencil writing things down in their
That's
car.
right.
So thank you, Sue, very much for sharing
you.
these stories and for heading up the Lives of Commitment Breakfast for 2022. And we'll look forward to next year.
Well, thank you.
And we'll look forward to seeing you next week on Encounter, sponsored by the Broome County Council of Churches, with gratitude to WBNG TV for the production facilities and for the guidance in putting our program together each week. I'm Jeff Kellam, hoping that in the coming week, you will be gentle with people and with yourself.